Alright, so starting with the front of our truck, we're going to check our clearance lights up top. Make sure they're properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. They're amber in color and there's no condensation inside. We're going to come down to our headlight assemblies on the passenger and the driver's side. We're going to make sure that the turn signals are amber in color. They're properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken, no condensation inside. We're going to check our headlights on both sides. Make sure that they're clean and clear, not cracked or broken, no condensation inside. I'm going to check my DOT bumper. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. My tag is legible and up to date. I'm also going to check and make sure that my truck is not leaning to one side or the other. If my truck was leaning, it could be a flat tire, a broken spring, or a shift in the load inside the truck. I'm also going to check underneath my truck for any leaks. I don't want to be leaking any oil, power steering fluid, antifreeze, or anything like that. I'm going to open the hood. I'm going to go to the passenger side of my engine compartment first. I'm going to start up here at the top with my coolant reservoir. We'll make sure it's properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked or broken, not leaking. Make sure that my cap is in place and it's tight. I'm going to check all of my hoses under my hood. Make sure that they're properly mounted and secured with metal ends. There are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks. I'm going to check my radiator. Make sure that it's properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, not broken, not leaking. I'm going to follow that line down to my water pump. My water pump is belt driven. It's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not leaking. And I want to check my belt to make sure that it has no more than 3/4 of an inch of slack in the belt. My alternator is also belt driven. I want to make sure that same belt has no more than 3/4 of an inch of slack. My alternator is properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. I'm going to check all of my wires, my electrical wires. And I'm going to make sure that they're properly mounted and secured. There are no cuts or frays in my wires. I don't have any bare wires showing anywhere. I'm going to start behind my turbo with this clamp. And I'm going to make sure that my exhaust all the way under my cab has no soot or any evidence of an exhaust leak. And I'm going to follow it all the way back under my truck to make sure I have no soot anywhere to indicate an exhaust leak under my truck. The driver's side of my engine compartment, I'm going to start up at the top with my washer fluid reservoir. I want to make sure it's not cracked, not broken. The cap's in place. Make sure that it's above add and below full. I'm going to come to this side here. I'm going to check my oil dipstick to make sure it's properly mounted and secured. And I'm going to pull it out. I'd wipe it clean, put it back in, and then pull it out again to check my oil level and make sure I have no water or anything in my oil. I would also check my transmission fluid with the dipstick here the same way. Power steering fluid reservoir is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not leaking. I want to make sure it's above add and below full. I'd follow this hose down to my power steering pump, which is between the frame and the engine. It's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not leaking. It's gear driven. I go right here to my air compressor. Make sure that it's properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken, and I don't hear any air leaks. My steering shaft, I want to make sure when I move it, it has no more than 10 degrees of play. It's properly mounted and secured with the U-joints, and the U-joints are properly greased. My steering gearbox is properly mounted and secured to the frame. It's not cracked, broken, or leaking. I want to make sure that it's not cracked, broken, or leaking. My pitman arm, my drag link, my upper control arm, my lower control arm, and my tie rod ends are all properly mounted and secured with castle nuts and cotter pins, and they're properly greased. My spring hanger in the front and my spring hanger in the back are properly mounted and secured to the frame. They're not cracked or broken. My springs are not cracked, broken, or scissored. My spring mount with my 2 U-bolts and 4 nuts are properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken, and they're tight. My shock absorber is properly mounted and secured at the top and at the bottom. It's not cracked, broken, and it's not leaking right here on the bottom. My brake hose is properly mounted and secured with metal ends. I don't hear any air leaks. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured with the metal clamp in place. I don't hear any air leaks. My push rod and my slack adjuster are properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. And my push rod has no more than 1 inch of movement with the brakes released. These brake pads have dust covers on them, but I would want to check my pad to make sure that it has no less than 1/4 inch of pad. And I want to check my drum to make sure there are no cracks or illegal welds and no oil or grease buildup in that drum and pad. I want to check my frame, make sure it's properly mounted and secured, no cracks, no illegal welds. I'm going to come out to my wheel. It's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken, not bent. My tire is properly mounted and secured to my rim. All right, my sidewalls have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. My tread is evenly worn with no less than 4/32 of an inch tread depth. And I would check my tire pressure through my valve stem, which has a metal cap. It's not cracked, not broken. I don't hear any air leaks. And I'd use a manufacturer gauge to make sure I have no less than 100 PSI on this tire cold pressure. My lug nuts are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked. I don't see any rust trails indicating a loose lug nut. And my hub seal is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken, or leaking. All right, moving down the side of my truck, I'm gonna check my mirror brackets and mirrors, make sure they're properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken. The mirrors are clean and clear. Check my door, make sure that it opens properly and that my weather stripping is in good condition. Make sure my door closes properly. My grab handle is properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. My steps are properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken. They'll support my weight. My fuel tank, properly mounted and secured with the metal bands and the rubber backing. My fuel cap has the safety chain and the rubber seal. My battery box is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken. I want to make sure all of my battery connections are good and tight, and the cover is not going to fly off. It's secured. My air tanks are properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, not broken. I don't hear any air leaks, and I'm going to drain them daily. Okay. I'm going to check the overall condition of my truck. I'm going to check that clearance light up there, make sure it's amber in color, properly mounted and secured, no cracked or broken, and no condensation inside. I'm going to check all of my panels and rivets to make sure that they're all in good condition, no missing rivets, no missing panels. I'm going to come to the bottom of my truck again. I'm going to keep checking my frame for any cracks or illegal welds. My drive shaft has several different sections because of the length of my vehicle. I want to check all of my U-joints to make sure they're in good condition, they're properly greased, and I want to check all of my carrier bearings to make sure they're properly greased and in good condition. Coming to my rear axle, I'm going to check my spring hangers, one here, and I have one back there in the back. They're properly mounted and secured to the frame, not cracked or broken. I want to check my torque rod right here it's properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. My springs are all properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken, not scissored. My spring mounts with my 2 U-bolts and 4 nuts back there are properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. My brake chambers are properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. I don't hear any air leaking. My air brake hoses right there are properly mounted and secured to the brake chamber with metal ends, not cracked, not broken. I don't hear any air leaking. On the back side of this brake chamber is my push rod and my slack adjuster. I would check them to make sure I have no more than 1 inch of movement with the brakes released on the push rod, and they're not cracked, they're not broken, and they got the pins in place. I will go inside here to check my brake drum and pad. I want to make sure I have no less than a 1/4 inch of pad. I want to check my drum for any illegal welds or cracks, and I want to make sure I don't have any oil or grease buildup from a leaky wheel seal. My dual tires are properly mounted and secured to the wheels. I want to make sure that their tread is evenly worn with no less than 2/32 of an inch tread depth, and that there's no debris in between these tires. The wheels have no daylight between them. They're slammed together. I also want to make sure that my valve stems are properly mounted and secured, not cracked or broken. I don't hear any air leaking. And I would check both valve stems to make sure these tires have no less than 100 pounds of cold pressure. I want to check both of my wheels for cracks or illegal welds. My lug nuts are all there. They're properly mounted and secured. I see no indication of rust trails. My axle seal is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken. My mud flap, properly mounted and secured, not ripped, not torn. Still checking the overall condition of my box. I have a clearance light up there on the corner. It's red in color at the back of the vehicle. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not broken, no condensation inside. Still checking the frame, make sure there's no cracks or illegal welds. And moving to the back of my truck, I want to check all of my tail lights, blinkers, brake lights, and then up at the top, my red clearance lights. These are all red because they're at the back of the vehicle. They're not cracked, they're not broken, they're properly mounted and secured, and I see no condensation inside. My backup lights, both sides, are clear. They're in good condition, not cracked, not broken, no condensation inside. My roll-up door is in good condition. It's not cracked, not broken. I want to make sure that my latches properly. And this concludes the exterior portion of my pre-trip inspection. All right. So when we get in the cab, I want to make sure we start our safety items. We're going to start with our seat belt. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured at the top and the bottom back here. Want to make sure that it latches and unlatches properly. Okay. My fire extinguisher is properly mounted and secured to the floor over here. It's an ABC fire extinguisher. The pin is in place and is charged in the green. I have 3 red reflective triangles under your seat right there. They're properly mounted and secured. They're in good condition. They're not cracked or broken. I want to make sure I have some spare fuses in the truck. I also want to check, make sure my horn works. Okay, those are my 5 safety items that I'm going to check first. At this point, you can have the truck running for that way it's building up air pressure while you're going through all your items. Once I get done with the safety items, I'm going to check my mirrors, make sure they're properly mounted and secured. They're not cracked, broken, they're clean and clear, and they're adjusted to me. My windshield is properly mounted and secured, not cracked, not chipped, not broken. It's clean and clear, no illegal stickers. My windshield wiper blades are properly secured, they're in good condition, and they're flush against the windshield. My windshield wiper arms are not cracked, not broken, they're in good condition. Next, I'm going to check my defrost. So I'm going to turn it over to defrost and floor. Alright, I'm going to make sure that the defrost is working up top and the heat is working down below. Now I'm going to check my 5 gauges. I'm going to check my oil pressure gauge right here. Make sure it's in normal operating pressure, usually between 30 and 50 psi. My fuel gauge is reading correctly. I want to make sure that my primary and secondary air gauges are topped out at 120 psi. My coolant, my water temperature is coming up to temperature, and my voltage should be running between 12 and 14 volts. I'm going to turn my lights on, and I'm going to make sure that my right turn signal indicator works, my left turn signal indicator, my 4-way indicators, and then my high beam indicators is working. Okay. After that, I'm gonna go to my brake test. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna leave my brake engaged. I'm gonna put my foot on my service brake, put it in drive, and I'm gonna pull against my truck brakes to make sure that they're holding. And they're holding. All right. So now I'm gonna release my brake. I'm gonna put my hands real light under the steering wheel, and I'm gonna roll forward at about 5 miles per hour and test my service brake to make sure that it's not pulling to the right or to the left. Alright, so now I'm gonna put my truck in neutral. I'm gonna leave my brake released. I'm gonna make sure my air pressure is built up to 120. So I'm gonna let my truck run until my air compressor cuts off. Right there. I'm gonna turn my truck off. I'm gonna turn my key back to the on position. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold my brake pedal firmly for 60 seconds to make sure I lose no more than 3 psi in 60 seconds. Alright, the 60 seconds has passed. I lost no more than 3 psi. Now I'm gonna pump my brake pedal until my pressure bleeds down to about 50 to 60 pounds and my low air warning light comes on. Alright, so my low air warning lights are both on right here. Now I'm going to continue to pump my brakes until my valve pops out between 20 and 40 psi. There it goes. That concludes my pre-trip inspection.